Papa, may I help you carry the wood?
You finished your lesson so early, Johnny?
Can I help you work the farm instead of lessons?
Oh, so you want to be a farmer like your grandfather?
Yes. All that Latin prepares me for is to be a Roman. And since I will not be one, of what use is it?
Well, it trains the mind for law.
I hate it.
I want you to be a man of learning, Johnny. Though I fear in our country there is a miserable prejudice against men of education.
Papa, I make a poor figure at Latin. My thoughts keep running after play and trifles.
I'll tell you a secret, Johnny. When I was your age, I hated my Latin, too.
Did you truly?
But my father was anxious for me to go to college. So when I told him I did not like study, he was quick to answer. Very well, John. If Latin grammar does not suit you, you may try digging ditches. That meadow yonder needs a ditch, and you may put by your Latin and try that.
You were lucky.
Well, at first, I thought it was a marvelous change. But in 2 days, I discovered that digging ditches was harder than Latin study. At last, I got my courage up to ask him if I could go back to my Latin.
And he agreed?
Oh, he was glad of it. And if I've since gained any distinction, it was owing to those 2 days' hard labor in that abominable ditch.
Papa, is there nothing but Latin or the ditch?
Not in this life, Johnny.
John, when are you going to stop dancing this ridiculous Braintree jig of yours? Prancing back and forth between your farm and Boston in your wanton pursuit of riches.
Mr. Hancock, did you invite me to a public tavern to insult me?
No, to draw you out of your cowardly retreat.
You dare call me a coward because I will not join in your boyish pranks against the crown. Some of us did not inherit great fortunes from our uncles. We are not free to spend our days as tavern rebels. I have a law practice to attend to and a growing family who need food and
John,
clothes.
don't imagine you can escape your troubles by abandoning ours. How can you practice law in town or country after this?
What's this?
More bitter news from London.
What, another tax?
Far worse. Our judges are now to be paid by the crown rather than our own
And
legislature.
that will make them the king's tools, interpreting our laws to suit the crown. And soon no man in Boston will be allowed to piss without permission from Parliament.
Well, our people will never tolerate this.
See what Justice Brattle writes here. He claims that a judge paid by the crown would be more independent and free the colonies of needless expense.
Oh, Brattle is an ass. Any judge who accepts the crown's money should be impeached by our legislature. There's precedent for that in our English common law.
Will you write that in the Boston Gazette?
No.
But you know more law than
I am
Rat-
under no obligation to publish my every thought for the world.
Mr. Adams, now surely your conscience will demand that you
Mr.
publish an
Hancock, do
opinion
not
to
speak to me of conscience. I am 37 years old and the father of 4 children who depend upon me for their future. I own nothing but my house and land. I have a mere 300 pounds in savings, not much for my labors. I must gallop after every circuit court from here to Maine to scrape up what little business I can. I'm obliged to travel light, so I leave my conscience safe at home in Braintree. Damn, Mrs. Adams, it's freezing cold. No, it's scalding. Is there no choice between freezing and burning? Oh, damn. Mrs. Adams, I've cut myself.
I fear that trip to Boston has unsettled you.
Nonsense. You know what that imbecile Hancock said to me the last time I was in Boston?
What?
He called me a coward in a public tavern.
He didn't.
But he did. Accused me of dancing from Braintree to Boston, Boston to Braintree, with no thought but to get enough money to carry myself smoothly through the world.
Well, you mustn't dwell on the ravings of a lunatic.
Abigail, it was God's truth in the mouth of a madman. In all Justice Brattle's researches hitherto, we have not been able to discover either that the judges had their commissions for life or that the Crown had the authority to grant them for life. Judges are the servants of the people and should be paid by the people. But now the King proposes to pay the judges. I have bestowed more labor upon Justice Brattle's writings in the newspaper than was necessary to show their imperfection. I subscribe myself yours, Justice Brattle's, and the public's well-wisher and very humble servant, John Adams.
How much is too much? A tax on tea should not foment rebellion. But to Boston citizens, King George's tax on British tea, petty token of authority that it was indeed too much.
Therefore, be it hereby resolved that the people of Boston refuse to pay for the tea which was deposited into the harbor by the marauding band of Indians.
A blockade of Boston?
That is the Crown's answer. We are to be cut off from all supplies and food, starved into submission until that damned tea is paid for.
Well, surely the other colonies will send aid.
Let us pray. But first, let us hope the other colonies understand our course.
Throughout America, in every town hall and legislature, brave men have spoken out in support of Boston, proving that we have not been isolated, that we are not alone. Now, in each colony, representatives have now been elected to a Continental Congress to be held in Philadelphia this September. The purpose of this Congress will be to plan relief for Boston and a more lasting accommodation with Great Britain. It is my pleasure to announce the newly elected representatives from the colony of Massachusetts, Mr. James Bowdoin, Mr. Thomas Cushing, Mr. Robert Treat Payne, Mr. Samuel Adams, Mr. John Adams.
Two months in Philadelphia. You've never been out of New England before.
Abigail, you need not remind me that I'm a provincial, unequal to the task ahead.
My dear, you mistake my words. I fear for your safety, not for your success. If only I could go with you. Mr. Adams, I must confess, my desire to go with you does not spring only from my concern for you.
No?
I know I have sufficient duties to prevent my roving, but... Oh, John, I have always felt a great inclination to travel. I'm curious to know what is valuable in this world.
Well, I promise you, I will write you everything I see and feel. You will see Philadelphia through my eyes. Would you be content with that?
I will be content with a small part of the world. If only it were free.
I did not know you were so passionate a patriot.
We women are obliged to conceal our passions from the world.
How fortunate for me that I'm not the world.